right, if I can get everybody's attention, we're back from our lunch and let's continue our meeting, and we're going to go back to our original agenda item.
This is legal, if I may. I did want to note that we are not currently at quorum, and so we can listen, and so the reports can be made, and of course the documentation of the reports are available to the board and to the public, but the board cannot discuss nor take any votes or any action.
Thank you for keeping us honest. And we're going to go to item 6I, which is Department of Consumer Affairs Director's Report on Departmental Activities. And we have Ms. Come on, Pucciarelli.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. On behalf of the Department of Consumer Affairs and Board and Bureau Relations, we'd like to say Happy New Year, and I'd like to thank you for allowing me the opportunity to present you the DCA update this afternoon. Can't hear me?
Yeah, bring it up.
Right up here?
Yeah.
Oh, no. Okay, how about this? Perfect. Okay, so I'll be moving through several topics this afternoon, and I'd ask that you hold any questions that you may have till the end of the update, if that's okay, and we'll get started. So we have some new staff with the department. We are very excited to announce that the governor appointed leaders to DCA's Board and Bureau Relations team this fall. Melissa Gear is now serving as DCA's new Deputy Director, and Yvonne Durantes is serving as the new Assistant Deputy Director. We are also pleased to announce the appointment of Kathleen Nichols as the Chief of the Division of Investigation. She was sworn in on December 5th. Ms. Nichols has extensive law enforcement experience with over 26 years of investigating and supervisory experience. The department has begun the process to fill the Deputy Chief position in the Health Quality Investigation Unit. Next, the department would like to talk a little bit about the DCA Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Steering Committee. The department established its first Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Steering Committee, and we'll reference that as DEI, to guide the department's equity strategy, initiatives, and action plans. The DEI committee held its official kickoff meeting on November 9th, and its second meeting will be held later this month. Additional resources will become forthcoming that the boards will be able to use and incorporate into their strategic plans and recruitment processes. The committee will concentrate on 3 key areas: workforce, to find and keep diverse talent; workplace, actively educate leaders and employees to raise awareness and foster an inclusive culture; and marketplace, be sensitive to the diverse backgrounds and perspectives of consumers, applicants, and its licensees. Strategic planning. To more effectively advance equity and drive outcomes that increase opportunity for all, strategic plans for July 2023 and beyond must be developed and/or updated in accordance with Governor Gavin Newsom's executive order. DCA is revising its strategic planning processes to include more inclusive public engagement, data analysis, and the incorporation of diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, into strategic planning. The DEI committee will provide input to the strategic planning processes in the coming months. DCA will begin implementing the revised processes and working with boards on updating existing strategic plans or developing new ones by March 2023. The department now has a new strategic plan and logo and released its new strategic plan in November, and we officially transitioned to a new logo on January 3rd, 2023. The new logo will be implemented gradually throughout 2023. Existing items with previous DCA logo are still valid during the transition and do not need to be replaced or updated. DCA, board, and bureau leadership have been given information and resources to help with the new logo's implementation. There is a centralized website that is available at www.dca.ca.gov/logo. The new plan and logo represent the department's next chapter and future, with consumer protection continuing to guide our mission and priorities. DCA holds itself to a high standard as a licensing entity, regulator, educator, and service provider. Additionally, the plan incorporates our strong commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, as well as our shared commitment to each and every consumer. The new logo not only displays our state's official colors, but it also visually represents DCA's vision together with protecting California consumers. The shield symbolizes DCA's strong and long-standing protection mandate. The state symbolizes all 40 million Californians DCA has pledged and is honored to serve. The star symbolizes consumer protection as DCA's true guiding principle, its own North Star. If you have any questions, please contact Melissa Gear, Deputy Director of Bureau Board and Relations.
Thank you.
Oh, I have more. Thank you.
Please continue.
Next, I will discuss the next board item. I'm sorry about that. Board member travel. As travel resumes, keep in mind that all state travel arrangements must be made through DCA's authorized travel agency, Cal Travel Store, or Concur. When traveling by air on official state business, all board members and staff must use the most economical fares possible. Typically, this is the wanna get away option. If the flight is changed, there may be additional charges. Flight changes for personal convenience are not permitted, and the traveler is responsible for any associated charges. Please contact Board and Bureau of Relations if you have any travel questions. And I will add on that, you can also go on the DCA intranet if you have access to that, and you can go to the travel store, and there's a lot of information regarding travel and a travel pamphlet. Okay, now I'm going to talk a little bit about required board member training. Now is the time to go over all necessary board member trainings and submit your certificates of completion to your executive officer and DCA at memberrelations@dca.ca.gov. Board members must complete board member orientation training, or what we call VMOT, within the first year of appointment or reappointment. Ethics training within 6 months of their appointment and every 2 years thereafter. Sexual harassment prevention training within the first year and every 2 years thereafter. And defensive driver training within the first year and every 4 years after. For your convenience, these trainings are offered multiple times a year in a variety of formats. For more information, a mandatory trainings page has been created to help members identify, access, and track specified trainings. The page includes direct links to mandatory trainings as well as pertinent information and policies specific to these training courses. The page is available via the DCA Board Member Resource Center page under Required Board Member Training. You can also reach out to Melissa Gear or Yvonne Durantes. I do have some updated mandatory training information for 2023. There are 2 mandatory trainings for 2023. These include sexual harassment prevention training and information security awareness trainings. All DCA employees and appointees, including board members, will need to complete the sexual harassment prevention training this year. This training is required every odd-numbered year and is approximately 2 hours in length. In addition, if you are assigned a DCA email, you are required to complete the Information Security Awareness Fundamentals 2023 training. Information Security Awareness training addresses everyone's role in protecting DCA data and information. The training is approximately 15 minutes and required every year. Both the sexual harassment prevention training and information security awareness trainings are available in the department's learning management system, which we commonly refer to as LMS. Both trainings can be accessed at any time. In the next few weeks, information will be sent out via email on how to access these trainings. Next, I'd like to talk a little bit about President's Training. DCA invites presidents and vice presidents to our President's Training on February 22nd, 2023 from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. This virtual 2-hour training will outline the role of a board president, including understanding the scope of the role, managing board members, and performing administrative duties. More information will be available soon. End of COVID-19 state of emergency waivers. The state of emergency and associated executive orders N-39-20 and N-75-20 will end on February 28, 2023. Upon the state of emergency ending, active waivers that were issued under the authority of the state of emergency and executive orders will also expire. The Executive Office would like to thank you for your dedicated service throughout the pandemic. Annual Form 700. Board and committee members are required to file a statement of economic interest, Form 700, within 30 days of their appointment, annually and within 30 days of leaving office. This year's annual filing period covers the prior calendar year, January 1st, 2022 through December 31st, 2022. The deadline for filing is Friday, April 1st, 2023. To ensure compliance, DCA requests that Form 700 filers complete the e-filing by Friday, March 15, 2023. You should have recently received an email from NetFile with instructions on how to file your Form 700. If you have any questions or would like more information on the Form 700 process, please contact Melissa Gear at melissagear@dca.ca.gov. Last item, board member orientation training, which is also known as BMOT. Board members must complete BMOT training within 1 year of their appointment or reappointment. On March 22nd, 2023, BMOT will be offered as a live virtual day of training and possibly in person on June 20th, 2023 and October 10th, 2023. More information will be available soon. Members can sign up using DCA's Learning Management System, LMS. And thanks again for giving me the opportunity to provide you the DCA update. And I'll be happy to try and answer any questions that you may have.
For that report. Mr. Savoy?
Thank you so much for being here as representative of DCA. Having sat through this, I know you realize the importance of the work that we do in consumer protection and overseeing 115,000 CPAs and or firms in the state of California. What happened a little while ago prior to your report is we did not have a quorum. We do now. But if there's any way that you can emphasize to the director to please ask the governor's office to do something to fill our 4 vacancies although this is voluntary work, a lot of us take it very seriously and travel a great deal and give up time to be here and to face a potential quorum issue where we're deemed irrelevant in terms of what our agenda is in a 2-day meeting is frustrating. So if there's anything you can do, we would really appreciate it, as we now have 4 vacancies on this committee. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. And I will tell you, I will bring your concern back to my boss, Melissa Gear, and I'm sure she'll have a discussion with the director. All right, thank you so much.
And Dan Jacobson, you have a hands up?
Yeah, we can't hear you, Dan.
There we go. I was about 5 minutes late and about 10 minutes working on trying to refresh and all that stuff. Secondly, I did not get anything about Form 700. So maybe if you could just check on that, Stan Jacobson. And thirdly, what was the date that you would prefer for us to have them filed, the Form 700s?
Okay, I believe
March 15th.
Yeah, March 15th is the deadline.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Latta?
Yes, thank you. In reference to the 2023 mandatory sexual harassment training, does that apply if you've just taken it in 2022?
It does. So every odd year, you have to take the online training. So in the even years, usually policies are issued and it requires you to sign an acknowledgement form. And I understand that you may have taken it as a retired annuitant. I had to take the training and I am having to take it again this year. So it is in the calendar year.
Corrigan?
Yes, I believe as staff normally does, the say will be notifying members via email of what courses we are required to complete. Is that correct?
Yeah, yes, it is. And going back to Ms. Lotta's question, you were appointed during 2022, so you had to take it upon appointment. And then the odd years are just the years that everybody is required to do the training. So you kind of got it back to back on that time frame. But yes, Ms. Corrigan, we notify the members when the various trainings are due.
You will be very well informed. I think you will be very well informed. So thank you again. Any public comments? Seeing none, Ms. Moderator, can you open up WebEx, please?
Certainly, and we are opening up the WebEx Q&A feature to facilitate public comment. If anyone has any comments on the DCA update, you can look for the question mark icon, typically in the lower right of your WebEx screen. Click that, type the word comment into the text box and click send. Or the other option is to raise your hand. You may raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon, or our calling members can press *3 to raise their hand. And I do not see any requests for comment at this time. Shall I close that feature?
Yes, please. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is 6H, overview of the sunset review process, and Ms. Priest is going to be reporting out.
Thank you. So this item is intended to provide an overview of the CBA's upcoming sunset review process. Every 4 years, each Department of Consumer Affairs board or bureau must undergo a review process. The term sunset is used because the statutory authority of those DCA boards and bureaus, including the CBA, contain a deadline in statute for the legislature to reauthorize the board or bureau. If a bill is not enacted to extend the authority of that board or bureau, its authority would lapse or sunset. So each year, the Assembly and Senate Business and Professions Committees meet as a joint legislative committee on sunset review. The year before the sunset date of a particular board or bureau, the Joint Committee will provide to that board a series of questions and requests for data and other information related to its licensing, enforcement, and related functions. An example of this is available in the attachment, which represents the Sunset Review Questionnaire we received in late 2022. The Sunset Review Questionnaire will lead to the creation of the Sunset Review Report, which is typically due to the legislature a little more than a year before a board's sunset review date. The report also discusses previous sunset reviews and affords an opportunity to bring forward issues that should be addressed by the legislature. After a board or bureau's submission of its report, a hearing of the Joint Sunset Review Committee is held so that committee members may hear from the CBA president and executive officer and ask questions. To prepare CBA representatives for this hearing, DCA executive staff conducts mock hearings with individuals who may testify. These assist in preparing for the wide range of questions that will be posed during the legislative hearing. Following the hearing, legislative staff may issue their recommendations, including whether the CBA sunset date should be extended and if any of the CBA's functions should be revised. The CBA was scheduled to undergo sunset review process in 2023 with our report due late last year. However, the passage of legislation last year, with the passage of legislation last year, many boards and bureaus' sunset date was moved, including ours. So as a result, we'll be submitting our sunset report later this year and undergoing hearings in 2024. And regarding the report's development, the CBA has not yet received the final series of questions and data requests necessary to fulfill its report to the Joint Committee, but we have begun to analyze the questions and requests for data provided to the boards in 2022, which is included as the attachment for your reference. Staff anticipate bringing updates on the report development to the March, May, and July 2023 CBA meetings, and I apologize that in the item it actually says 2022. That was incorrect. With a possible approval of the CBA's report to occur either at the September or November CBA meeting. And we have been in contact with staff at the Senate Business Professions Committee. They don't anticipate a big swing in questions or big changes in questions between the 2022 questionnaire and the one for 2023. So I think we're on solid ground using that as our foundation to create our report. So this concludes my presentation. I'll turn it back to Vice President Tu, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that report. Any questions from the board? Seeing none, any question or comment from the public? Seeing none, Ms. Moderator, could you open up for WebEx comments?
Certainly. We're opening up the WebEx Q&A feature to facilitate public comment. If you'd like to make a comment, you can look for the question mark icon, click that, type the word comment in the text box and click send. The other option is to raise your hand. And for call-in users, you may raise your hand by pressing *3.
Okay.
And I do not see any requests for public comment. Shall I close that feature?
Yes, thank you so much. And item number 7, report of the Vice President. 7A is recommendations for appointment or reappointment to the Law Enforcement Advisory Committee. There is no appointment. Item 7B, recommendation for appointment and reappointment to the Qualification Committee. We do have one appointment. This item is recommend the appointment of Jeffrey Moline, CPA, to the Qualification Committee. The Qualification Committee assists the CPA in its licensure activities by reviewing the experience of applicants for a licensure and making recommendations to the CPA. This includes conducting work paper review, the applicant or the employer present to verify that the responses provided are reflective of the requisite experience for licensure. I have conferred with the CPA acting executive officer to verify that each individual has met the appropriate requirement for those license renewal and have demonstrated the skill and knowledge to serve as a member on the Qualification Committee. I would like to make a motion to appoint Jeffrey Mullane, CPA, to the Qualification Committee effective January 27, 2023 until January 31st, 2025. Can I get a second? Ms. Colligan, second. Any question?
Yes,
or
I second that motion.
Oh, thank you very much, Ms. Colligan. And any comment or question regarding this appointment? Seeing none. Public comment? Oh, sorry.
No, I mean, I'm
Go
looking
ahead,
at this
Mr. Savoy.
resume. I hate to, I mean, he jumps around a lot. I hope his commitment to the CBA is good. That's all.
I have full confidence that our staff have reviewed their qualification, right? Dominic? Okay. So hopefully, all right, if Mr. Savoy is okay, any comment from the public? Seeing none. Ms. Moderator, can you open up WebEx for comments?
Certainly, we've opened up the WebEx Q&A feature to facilitate public comment. If you'd like to make a comment, you can click on the question mark icon, type the word comment in the text box and click send, or anyone may raise their hand by clicking on the hand icon, and our calling users can press *3 to raise their hands. And I see no request for comment. Shall I close public comment?
Yes, please. Thank you. Ms. Reed, can you call the vote?
Nancy Corrigan,
Yes.
Dan Jacobson,
Yes.
Christian Lotta,
Yes.
Joe Rosenbaum,
Yes.
Katrina Salazar,
Yes.
Michael Savoy,
Yes.
Yin Tu,
Yes.
and Evangeline Ward.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you so much. All right, moving on to the next item, which is recommendation for appointment and reappointment to the Peer Review Oversight Committee, and I do not have any report on this item. All right, moving on to item number 9, report of the executive officer. Mr. Finzelli is the executive officer, and item A is the review and approval of proposed changes to California Board of Accountancy Member Guidelines and Procedures Manual. Ms. Pierce, can you do the report?
Thank you. The GMP manual is designed to serve as a reference guide regarding the functions of the CBA and its committees. We have identified by underline and strike through all the edits that are being proposed. I'll highlight some of the substantive proposed changes. However, I'm happy to answer questions regarding any changes noted in the manual. Page 1, we updated the number of licensees. On page 4, we updated language regarding the executive officer evaluation. On page 7, we updated language to reference Senate Bill 189 regarding the ability to meet via teleconference through July 1 of this year, 2023. Page 20, we updated the footnote regarding the disbandment of the mobility stakeholders group through sunset review, which is a legislative proposal for that sunset review process. Page 27, we added reference to the conflict of interest tip sheet. And last, on page 32, we added information regarding flight changes for the purpose of personal convenience. There were other minor non-substantive changes made to improve the overall clarity. This concludes my presentation. I'll turn it back over to Vice President Tu, and I'm happy to answer any questions members may have.
Thank you, Ms. Pierce. Any question or comment from the board members? Seeing none. Any from the public member here? Sure, that's true. All right. Actually, board member, I would entertain a motion to accept these. Is it changes or just update? They're changes, right, to the guideline?
Yeah, it could be just an adoption of the GMP manual, the 2023 version that includes those particular updates in the plan.
All right. So, Ms. Corrigan.
Yes, I move that we adopt the January 2023 version of the CBA's GMP manual, and also consisting of the changes that they are proposing. Thank you.
Okay.
Second.
Thank you for the second, Ms. Rosenbaum. And any other comment or question from the board members? we're moving on to the general public here. Seeing none, Ms. Moderator, can you open up for WebEx for comments and questions?
Certainly, we've opened the WebEx Q&A feature to facilitate public comment. If you'd like to make a comment on the changes or the motion involved, you can look for the question mark icon, type the word comment and click send, or you may look for the hand icon, click that, and our calling users can press *3 to raise their hand. And I do not see any requests for public comment. Shall I close that feature?
Yes, please do so. Ms. Reed, can you call for a vote?
Evangeline Ward,
Yes.
Yen Tu,
Yes.
Michael Savoy,
Yes.
Katrina Salazar, Joe Rosenbaum,
Yes.
Christian Lotta,
Yes.
Dan Jacobson,
Yes.
and Nancy Corrigan.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Ms. Reed. We now on item number 9B, report on administration division. Ms. Pierce again.
You're hearing a lot from me today. Let's see. Just want to mention a few things on our report of the administration division. We have received several completed Prometric site visit evaluations and appreciate those who are assisting us with this important activity. If you are continuing to work on your site visits, that's great. For those who volunteered, please contact me if you have any questions or you need any further assistance. Couple of regulatory items I want to mention. First, we are actually in contact with the Office of Administrative Law today, actually, regarding our continuing education regulations. So we hope to have additional information on the outcome of those proposed changes within the next week or so. So we'll keep board members updated on that. And we also held a public hearing on January 10th regarding the regulations for the sale, transfer, and discontinuance of a licensee's practice. Information regarding the comments received and any further action that is necessary will be presented at the March CBA meeting. And last, I'm happy to report that we have a new member in our executive office, Katrina Pierce, who is at the back of the room over here, our new executive assistant. So you may be in contact with her. We're excited to have her as part of our team. And that concludes my presentation, and I'll turn it back to Vice President Tu, and happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you for that report again. Any comments or questions from the board members? Seeing none, thank you for the report. All right, we are moving on to item 9C, update on the California Board of Accountancy Communication and Outreach, and David Hemphill will be doing that report.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Vice President Tu, members of the board. I am David Hemphill. I'm the Information and Planning Analyst here at the CBA, and I'm pleased to present the Communications and Outreach report to you today. So we are officially on the clock for CPA evolution. It is now less than 1 year until the changes to the Uniform CPA examination take effect. The CBA will dedicate much effort this year making sure exam candidates are aware of the change and how it will affect them, especially if they are in the process of taking their exam sections as the calendar changes to 2024. Our communications efforts have already begun with the introduction of a new page on the CBA website devoted entirely to CPA evolution. When you click on this page, the first thing you'll notice right on top is a clock counting down to the start of the new exam. Checking it right now, so we're sitting at 347 days, 10 hours, and some change. So there you go, it's clicking. Also on the page are important dates in the transition, a full explanation of the transition policy, and a link to FAQs, frequently asked questions about CPA evolution. Posts spotlighting this new CPA evolution page on social media have received quite a bit of activity, lots of shares, all told it's garnered almost 6,000 impressions. And this is just the beginning of how we will be promoting CPA evolution for, well, at least the next 347 days. Our latest update newsletter, issue number 97, was published to the website in mid-December. So we did issue 3 issues in total in 2022. The new issue features an interview with member Christian Lotta, CPA. So if you haven't read it already, I hope you will take a moment to learn a little more about your colleague. Former President Michael Savoy, CPA, also got a write-up about his 12-plus years on the board coming to an end soon. Staff has already begun work on the spring issue, which is number 98, and we expect to have that out in March. We're also looking ahead to issue number 100, which will be our fall issue this year, and brainstorming ways to make that extra special to celebrate the 100th issue. In case you were wondering, issue number 1 was released in the fall of 1986. I recently went on a grand expedition mission to try and locate this ancient artifact, and I was successful. It's so skinny, I almost lost it. Here it is. It's literally one page, front and back. Kind of funny. So there we go. We have something called the Positive Enforcement Committee on here. So very interesting. So that was kind of fun. We've come a long way since 1986, and we actually still have at least one copy of all of our past updates here on site. So that was kind of fun to discover that. As we just heard, the Department of Consumer Affairs has updated its logo at the beginning of the new year to correspond with its new strategic plan. The shield in the new logo representing the strong and long-standing consumer protection mandate, followed by the boards and bureaus which make up the DCA, which includes CBA. And you can see a visual of that new logo in this report. The CBA annual report covering fiscal year 2021 and 22 was posted to the website in December. The 44-page report details the CBA's accomplishments from those 12 months, as well as information on each of the divisions of the CBA. President Salazar has been a little extra busy lately as she spoke at the California Society of CPA's annual legislative summit last week and was the guest on the latest episode of the CBA's Accounting for California podcast, which I am the host of. Her episode is now posted on the podcasting page of the CBA website, and I encourage you to take a few minutes and listen to what she has to say about her second term as CBA president, her priorities for 2023, and why accounting is a viable career choice for young people. Finally, it was a great year for the CBA social media pages in 2022. Our Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn profile added a combined 1,300 followers last year. LinkedIn continues to be the star as it increased its following by more than 50% over the past 12 months. The most reactive post in the fourth quarter was Mr. Savoy getting to sign his daughter Sky's CPA certificate as one of his final acts as CPA president in November. That post accumulated a whopping 11,000 impressions across all 3 of our platforms, tugging on those heartstrings. He's a star. We're planning even more great ways to utilize social media and its reach to amplify CBA messaging in 2023. That concludes my presentation on this agenda item. I'll now turn it back over to Vice President Tu, but I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
I actually have a question regarding those comments you get through social media. If there's questions there, do staff respond to them?
Yes, absolutely. I am the one who is tasked with monitoring all those websites. So yes, I get back to them in a timely manner.
Okay, good to know that. Any other question or comment from the board members? Seeing none, we'll move on to our next item, which is item 9D, discussion and possible action regarding the California Board of Accountancy 2023 Communication and Outreach Plan. Ms. Pierce.
Thank you. So the goal of a communications and outreach plan is to provide a framework that discusses the CBA's strategic communication and outreach goals and how it intends to increase the volume and effectiveness of its activities in pursuit of those goals. Many aspects of the 2023 Communications and Outreach Plan are consistent with or build upon the CBA-approved 2022 plan, including the target audiences, messaging goals, and priorities. While most of the priorities set out in the 2022 plan were accomplished last year, those that are still outstanding have been included on the 2023 priority list. Attachment 2 provides a detailed overview of those priorities. The 2023 plan was updated to include the proposed priorities as identified on page 2 of the agenda item. The implementation of priorities will be reported on during future CBA meetings as part of the Communications and Outreach Report. And I do want to add that in addition to those priorities that are included in the agenda item, we're also going to be adding committee member pipeline to that, as was identified during the leadership roundtable as a priority as well. Staff welcome any feedback and also recommend the CBA approve the 2023 plan. At this time, I'm happy to answer any questions members may have.
All right, thank you, Ms. Pierce. Any question or comments from the board? There's a request for the adoption of the plan, so I would love to entertain a motion. Ms. Latta?
I move to approve the 2023 communication plan.
Thank you. Ms. Colligan?
And I will second that motion. Thank you.
Excellent. Any further discussion or question? All right, public, if you have any questions or comments, seeing none, Ms. Moderator, can you open up WebEx for question and comment?
Certainly, and we've opened up the WebEx Q&A feature to facilitate public comment. If you'd like to make a comment, you can click on the question mark icon, type the word comment in that text box and click send, or you may raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon, and our call-in users can press *3 to raise their hand. Each speaker will be given 5 minutes to speak. And I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close that feature?
Yes, please, thanks. Ms. Reed, can you call for the vote?
Christian Lotta,
Yes.
Joe Rosenbaum,
Yes.
Katrina Salazar,
Yes.
Michael Savoy,
Yes.
Yin Tu,
Yes.
Evangeline Ward,
Yes.
Nancy Corrigan,
Yes.
and Dan Jacobson.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you, Ms. Reed. And, you know, I have to say that the whole social media activities, it's especially with Mr. Savoy, the star that he is providing a lot more activities for us and makes the whole CBA much more exciting. So thank you, Ms. Pierce. All right, the next item on the agenda is item 10, and item 10A and B, there's no report on those agenda items. And item 10C is Peer Review Oversight Committee. Ms. Ross?
Good afternoon, Vice President Tu, members of the board. I am Laura Ross, Chair of the CBA's Peer Review Oversight Committee, known as the PROC for the rest of this discussion. The PROC held its meeting at the CBA headquarters on December 9th. I would like to thank CBA Liaison Joseph Rosenbaum for attending our meeting and providing an overview of the CBA activities from the September 22nd and November 17th, 2022 CBA meetings. During the meeting, the PROC discussed, provided feedback, and approved its May 13th and August 12th, 2022 meeting minutes. The PROC members have engaged in several oversight activities since its August 2022 meeting. The PROC members attended 6 report acceptance body meetings, 2 AICPA peer review board open session meetings, the Cal CPA peer review committee meeting, and the 2022 AICPA peer reviewer training conference. PROC members reported that the RABs, PRBs, PRC, and the training conference all met expectations. PROC members also reviewed 2 out-of-state administering entities, the Massachusetts Society of CPAs and the Ohio Society of CPAs. The Massachusetts Society of CPAs administers peer review programs for the states of Massachusetts and New Hampshire, and the Ohio Society of CPAs administers the peer review program for the state of Ohio. Both the Massachusetts Society of CPAs and the Ohio Society of CPAs complied with the administrative procedures and standards in all material respects as established by the CBA. As a standing item, PROC members also discussed notices posted on the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants and National Association of State Boards of Accountancy websites
regarding changes and updates to the peer review programs. The PROC also reviewed and discussed the draft of the 2022 Peer Review Oversight Committee Annual Report. The PROC provided staff with edits and suggestions that the CBA staff will incorporate accordingly. Lastly, Michelle Center reported on the CBA's committee recruitment activities. We currently have, I believe, one vacancy. The next PROC meeting will be held on February 7th, 2023. I would like to turn discussion on this item back over to the president or vice president, and I'd be happy to answer any questions members may have.
Thank you, Ms. Ross, and thank you for being here the all 2 days I've seen you here, by the way. That's a lot of your time that you volunteer.
I was supposed to attend.
And you follow direction. We appreciate that. So any comment from the board and or questions? Seeing none, thank you so much for the report.
Thank you.
And then the next item on the board is 11, report on the enforcement chief, Ms. O'Connor.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Carrie O'Connor, and I'm the Deputy Chief of the Enforcement Division. This activity report before members today is for the first 5 months of fiscal year 2022-23, which is through November 30th, 2022. For complaints received, the CBA received 1,496 complaints through November 30th. The graph on the bottom of page 1 provides a comparison of the total complaints received as of the same reporting period for the prior 2 fiscal years. Members will see, compared with the prior 2 fiscal years, we have received an increase when comparing this year with the most recent year, which is a 41% increase over 2021 and a 69% increase over the same period last fiscal year. On page 2, we have included information on the top 3 complaint types, with complaints regarding unlicensed activity being the top complaint type. Moving on to the investigations and investigations pending section of the report on page 3. At the end of the first 5 months of the fiscal year, staff closed 1,815 cases, with 99% closed within 1 year. The average days to close investigations is 108 days, which is a slight decrease since the last report. As of November 30th, 2022, enforcement had 1,799 cases in its pending investigations inventory. Members will see an increase in pending cases in the 6 to 12 months category compared to the last fiscal year. This is due largely to the influx in the number of unlicensed complaints received. Enforcement management will continue to monitor this area, and staff will be focusing on working to resolve these cases. There were 2 cases over 24 months, which are still actively being investigated. Members will see that the average age of our open cases is at 135 days. Next is page 4, which is discipline. Discipline-related information, we'll start with looking first at AG referrals. The CBA referred 18 matters to the Attorney General's office and filed 10 pleadings, with the majority being accusations. The CBA had taken 42 matters pending at the Attorney General's office. Lastly, the CBA has taken action on 9 final disciplinary orders as of November 30th. Moving on to citations and fines on page 5. The CBA issued 50 citations. This is a decrease from this time last fiscal year. The reason for the decrease is that continuing education waivers were granted due to COVID, which resulted in less renewal applications being referred to the Enforcement Division for CE deficiencies. And now that the waiver has expired, staff are following up on those that were granted waivers, and we are issuing citations. So I anticipate that by the next report, we will be back on pace with the number of citations issued. 33% of the citations were for a specific violation related to responding to the CBA. The CBA received 11 citation and fine appeals, and we have withdrawn or modified 6 of those citations associated with the citation and fine appeals. In most cases, the reason is that the licensee either provided new mitigating evidence or complied with the issue that resulted with the issuance of the citation. Moving on to page 6, unlicensed activity. The CBA has received 618 complaints regarding unlicensed activity. The vast majority, 81%, of the complaints in this category are from one individual, which involve individuals that do not have an active CPA license issued in California, holding out on a specific social media platform. We have closed 1,073 investigations through the first 5 months of the fiscal year, with the majority being closed as a result of compliance. And then now moving on to page 7, the final area of the enforcement activity report is probation monitoring. As of November 30th, 2022, we had 97 individuals on probation, and we are presently caught up with giving probation orientations to all of the individuals. We identified 27 probation violations, with the majority being failing to submit the written quarterly report. At this time, I'd like to turn the discussion over to Vice President Tu, and I would be happy to answer any questions members may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any question or comment from member of the board? Seeing none, thank you again for the report. All right, the next item is 12, and it's a written item. If anybody have any question, Ms. Center will be happy to answer, but otherwise it's not, oh, it is not a written report. I beg your pardon, it's A, licensing activity report. Is Ms. Benedict's gonna come and give us a report.
Thank you, Vice President Tu. My name is Sarah Benedict, and I'm the manager of the License Renewal and Continuing Competency Unit. The licensing activity report, for the LAR, covers the period of time between July 1st, 2022 and November 30th, 2022. Included in this report is the NASBA Uniform CPA Examination Performance Summary for the 3rd testing quarter of 2022. Turning to page 2 of the LAR, we have responded to over 42,000 stakeholder inquiries in the form of emails and telephone calls. Turning to page 3, the examinations unit has approved 7,676 applications to sit for the CPA exam. The initial licensing unit has approved 1,382 applications for CPAs and firms. Both units are processing below the 30-day goal. On pages 5 through 7 is data related to renewal deficiency and continuing education audits. Table 7 includes CE audit data. As of November 30th, 248 of the 376 audits completed in fiscal year 2022-23 were found to be compliant. 13 audits had identified deficiencies that were resolved, 6 still had deficiencies outstanding, and 2 were referred to enforcement for noncompliance. Table 8 includes population data. As of June 30th, the CBA had a grand total of 114,801 licensees, registrations, and permits. On page 9, data related to military and refugee, asylee, and special immigration visa holders are displayed. Table 10 lists the military and refugee applications received and approved. Military and refugee applications are being processed in 4 days on average. At its November 2022 meeting, the CBA asked the licensing division to provide 10 years of historical data for the first time and repeat CPA applications, the applications received for CPA licensure, and the CPA population. Licensing division staff are working on compiling this data and anticipate this item to be presented at the March 2023 CBA meeting. In December of 2022, the AICPA released the final Uniform CPA exam blueprints. The blueprints are a result of the AICPA's practice analysis research to align the CPA exam to the CPA Evolution Initiative, which will launch in January 2024. The blueprints will also be presented at the March 2023 CBA meeting. That concludes my presentation. I will now turn it back over to Vice President Tu, and I'm happy to answer any questions that members may have.
Thank you for that report. Any question or comment from the board? I'm actually going to go to the public to take comment from the last two reports, the enforcement activity as well as the licensing report. Anybody from the public want to make comment? Seeing none. Ms. Moderator, could you open up WebEx for comments and questions?
Certainly. If anyone has a comment on either the enforcement or licensing reports, you can look for the question mark icon in the typically in the lower right corner of your WebEx screen. Type the word comment in that text box and then click send, or you may raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon. And we have no further call-in users at this time, so I won't refer to those instructions. Are there any questions? And I see no requests. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Yes, please, and thank you. All right, our next item is 13A, adoption of minutes of the November 17, 2022 California Board of Accountancy meeting. Before I ask for adoption, I would like to get a motion to adopt the minute of the November 17, 2022 California Board of Accountancy meeting, specifically the agenda item 13A, which include non-substantive edits that were noted after the material were received. Can I get a motion to accept? Thank you, Mr. Savoy. Can Ms. Corrigan?
And I will second that motion. Thank you.
Thank you for the second. Any comment and a question from the board member? Seeing none, Ms. Reed, can you read the, I do need to get the public comments. Seeing none. Ms. Moderator, do you have any, open up for WebEx for comments?
Certainly, and if there's any comment, you can look for the question mark icon, type the word comment in the text box and click send, or raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon. Are there any public comments? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close that feature?
Thank you very much for that. Ms. Reed, can you take a roll?
Michael Savoy,
Yes.
Yen Tu,
Yes.
Evangeline Ward,
Abstain?
Nancy Corrigan,
Yes.
Dan Jacobson,
Yes.
Christian Lotta,
Yes.
Joe Rosenbaum,
Yes.
and Katrina Salazar.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you, Ms. Reed. All right, the next item is a multiple item. Can I get a motion to accept the minutes, specifically agenda item 13B through 13G, which include non-substantive edits that were noted after the material was received? Ms. Colligan?
Yes, I move to accept agenda items 13B through G, which are the minutes of the task force and various advisory committees of the board.
Thank you.
I second it.
Thank you, Mr. Savoy. Any comment or do I need to do the public with this one? Okay, thank you. It is a motion, correct. Thank you. Public in Sacramento, anybody? Seeing none? Ms. Moderator, can you open the WebEx for comments or questions?
Certainly. We've opened up WebEx Q&A. If you'd like to make a comment on the motion, you can look for the question mark icon, type the word comment and click send, or raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon. Are there any comments? I do not see any comments. Shall I close the feature?
Yes, please. Ms. Reed, call for the vote.
Nancy Corrigan,
Yes.
Dan Jacobson,
Yes.
Christian Lotta,
Yes.
Joe Rosenbaum,
Yes.
Katrina Salazar,
Yes.
Michael Savoy,
Yes.
Yin Tu,
Yes.
and Evangeline Ward,
Abstain.
and the motion carries.
Ms. Reed. All right, next item on the agenda is 14A, American Institute of Certified Public Accountant. Item 1, we are going to start making a lot of report on meetings. So Board of Examiner, Ms. President Savoy, do you have a report? Salazar. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. So this is Katrina Salazar. What I would like to do is just report on the Board of Examiners and State Board Committee, and then just very briefly touch on Diversity Committee, and then defer anything else for NASBA to Ms. Corrigan, who is in the room with you. But in terms of the Board of Examiners for the AICPA, I did participate in a Zoom meeting on December 1st. And at that meeting, the exam blueprints were approved and the practice analysis final report was approved as well. So those have subsequently been rolled out by the AICPA in a communications plan. Additional items discussed, this is sort of a standing item, is to discuss exam financials at the AICPA, and pricing of the exam was also a topic of conversation. I think the important thing that I would share for any educators or board members that have connections with educators is part of the AICPA outreach involves educator outreach, and there is a faculty hour coming up. It is called 2024 CPA Exam Blueprints and Transition Plans. And it is, you know what, I was not feeling that well. I believe that is February 17th from 2 to 3:30 Eastern Standard Time. But you can find the accurate information and the details on how to do that at thiswaytocpa.com. So that information is out there. So I'm hoping that is helpful to our educators that are our partners in evolution. The State Board Committee, which is item A to B, I attended a Zoom meeting on January 10th of this year. And there was additional discussion about those items since they had launched. So there was discussion of the blueprint and the plans to communicate. That committee received an evolution update and some education on standard setting around exam forms. And then with the grace of jumping ahead, Diversity Committee meeting for NASBA had a brief meeting in early January and is scheduled to begin work at a in-person session in February. So I look forward to more information at the next board meeting. So with that, concludes my report, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Right, for the sake of the flow of the meeting, I'm going to receive all the reports first, and then we'll go on comments and questions, unless somebody has any particular question for the board member that I was reporting out. Nancy Corrigan, do you have any report on NASBA?
Yes, I do. And this is agenda item 14B1, report of the NASBA board meeting. I'll be reporting as the Pacific Regional Director, having attended. And these are highlights of that board meeting that were on January 20th, just last week. Pipeline is an ever-present topic and serious discussion all over the United States, with a reminder that it's actually a worldwide problem and much more serious in other countries than even our own. At that meeting, as we know, the new exam blueprint was issued earlier this month, so there's discussion about that. That was issued so that everybody has now a look at that. One thing that NASBA leadership mentioned is that IT related to the new exam is transitioning well with the various jurisdictions, with user testing happening in February and March, with September 1st as a cutover date, whatever we want to call it. In that meeting, we discussed very briefly an 8-point plan that the AICPA issued to executive directors and officers on the ways to address CPA pipeline. Much discussion at the NASBA board with the weighting and the priority given to those topics. That information will be ongoing and will be presented to this board at a future date, so I really don't want to get into that at this point. We discussed the importance of keeping the 150-hour education requirement. There are jurisdictions kind of starting to discuss reducing it to the 120 hours, and that would have some serious consequences. So there's discussion on how to make the extra 30 hours maybe available and not letting that become a pipeline factor, and just trying to decide whether it really is a pipeline or has an impact on the pipeline. So a lot of analysis going on there. We discussed an integrated education and work experience plan, how to alleviate issues that some candidates may be having, discussions of firms and industry companies allowing employees to work hours, but also allow hours for them to receive education, doing it as a post-bachelor, not necessarily as a master's degree for those who want to do it that way. And in fall, later this year, a pilot test program to test this out may be available. Now, the top 100 firms seem to be interested in it. The smaller firms still need to have a discussion about this and how it might impact them. There are many, many details, obviously, to work out, and so that is ongoing. Apprenticeship programs and other creative ways to encourage those to enter the profession who maybe didn't complete their exams previously, or enticing them into the profession and why it's such a positive thing to do. Lots of topics, a very robust discussion about that. I want to close by saying it is important to note that NASBA recognizes that a multi-factor program might ultimately be adopted or be available, but that we must avoid double dipping, meaning you can't get credit for working or credit for education over the same hours. It's very distinct. And that also the educational experience of this post-bachelor, not yet master's degree, whatever it ends up being called, must have the same rigor as other education. In other words, we just can't make it easy for entry. It's got to have the rigor that we all know exists for the profession in accomplishing one's degree. Thank you, and I'm happy to entertain any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Corrigan. Do you have any other reports? Like I said, I'm going to do the flow. Do you mind continuing on your?
I will continue now. I do not have a report as the Pacific Regional Director. I reported to you in November on that one, but I do have a report on the Relations with Member Boards Committee. And as you know, that committee is made up of 8 regional directors. We also have a liaison, an executive director liaison that attends, and there are regularly scheduled, I believe it's monthly, communications with various jurisdictions, executive directors and officers, so a lot of communication going on. We discussed the annual meeting that was held in October and November, which some of you attended, and the feedback that was gathered at that time. We planned our upcoming February regional call, so if you have not received an evite yet on that, they will be coming out shortly. And also planning for the June regional meeting. That is, so the Western regional meeting is in Kansas City, and that is June 27th through June 29th. So that has kind of been decided. We met with NASBA's executive committee. That would be board officers and president, vice president of NASBA, to direct questions to them. So we have that opportunity in our committee. We're asking the status of NASBA's projects, obviously pipeline, exam conversion, those kinds of things where we get direct feedback. And one thing that came up that's important is that some boards and their societies either have poor relationships or no relationship. We know in California that we have a very fine working relationship, that we do partnered projects with them, legislative issues, that sort of thing. So there are boards that unfortunately do not have a relationship or have a very strained relationship. So the regional directors will be working to try to enhance and explain how it can work so wonderfully if you let it work, and how to do that. So there are instances where executive directors and officers do not share information with their boards. California does not have that issue, but some boards the boards are not informed. So we're trying to work on things like that. Encouraging consistency with the Uniform Accountancy Act model rules is also just another area. The NASBA leadership at that meeting made it very clear that if boards have questions for them, we don't have to wait for an annual meeting or a regional meeting, that they want those questions. They want to be a help to boards as much as they can. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, I'm going to go to the Communication Committee. I'm very excited to be appointed and join the first time NASBA committee myself, so that was exciting. Yesterday was our first meeting. That committee consists of many members, and more than half are new to the committee, so hopefully we'll see some exciting activities out of it because it was our first meeting. There was a lot of introductions, so we didn't do a lot of business. And moving on, Mr. Savoy, do you have any report on nominating committee?
No, as I am an alternate, I have no privy to any information unless I'm called upon, so no.
Thank you. Well, we need to change that, but that's besides the point. All right. I am now going to ask for comments and questions from the board members on all the reports that just been reported out. Seeing none. Anybody from the public here in Sacramento? Seeing none. Ms. Moderator, could you open up WebEx for comments?
Certainly. And we are open for public comments on the reports that have been issued. And at this point, well, yes, if you'd like to make a comment, you can look for the question mark icon, tap that, type comment and click send, or raise your hand. And I do not see any requests for public comment. Shall I close that feature?
Yes, please. Thank you. And since there's no vote, we're going on to a next item, which is item 15, report on the consideration of CPA Experience Requirement Task Force, Legislative Committee, and so forth. Item 15A is the consideration of CPA Experience Requirement Task Force. Ms. Corrigan.
Thank you. And as we refer to that task force CERT, we met yesterday. We had a very productive and very robust meeting with discussion and a number of recommendations that I will be presenting for the CBA's consideration in the form of actions, hopefully. The first one, agenda item 15A2, discussion and possible action on a recommendation to the California Board of Accountancy regarding whether the present attest experience requirement is sufficient to support the California Board of Accountancy mission to protect consumers by ensuring only qualified licensees practice public accountancy in accordance with professional standards. So we had our licensing chief, Ms. Fender, present a report regarding the sufficiency and attest experience requirement. She provided staff's recommendation that the current requirements are sufficient, feedback from the qualifications committee that they believe the current requirements are sufficient, and licensing survey data supporting the QC's or qualification committee's feedback and staff recommendation. So after hearing the report, the CERT discussed and deliberated at length on the sufficiency of the test experience requirement. CERT requests that the CBA adopt CERT's recommendation that the current attest experience requirement is sufficient for the protection of consumers by ensuring only qualified licensees practice public accountancy in accordance with professional standards. If the CBA adopts the CERT recommendation, then no further action is necessary on the part of the CERT. Please note that the CERT recommendation is a fully formed motion and would not require a second.
Thank you, Ms. Corrigan. So we have a motion. If anybody on the board have any comment, please do so now. Anybody from the public want to make a comment?
Seeing none, and since we don't have anybody on the WebEx participating currently, we will monitor, and if anybody comes in, we'll make sure to ask for a comment from there. Otherwise, Ms. Reed, can you take a vote?
Joe Rosenbaum,
Yes.
Katrina Salazar,
Yes.
Michael Savoy,
Yes.
Yen Tu,
Yes.
Evangeline Ward,
Yes.
Nancy Corrigan,
Yes.
Dan Jacobson,
Yes.
and Christian Lotta.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Ms. Reed. All right, the next item is 15B, Legislative Committee. Mr.
No, I.
Oh, I'm sorry, she's not finished yet.
No, thank you. I'm kind of taking it section by section so that the board can thoroughly be aware. So this is agenda item 15A3, discussion and possible action on a recommendation to the California Board of Accountancy regarding accounting firms' ability to provide attest services when the firm owners do not have the authority to sign reports on attest engagements. So our acting executive officer, Mr. Franzella, reported that the purpose of this item was to provide the CERT an opportunity to offer a recommendation to the California Board of Accountancy regarding accounting firms providing attest services when the firm owners do not have authority to sign reports on attest engagements. The CBA had taken some initial actions to increase consumer protections surrounding this issue, including increased notification to both the client through enhanced client notification, peer review notification, and professional responsibility through enforcement actions. Following the CBA's initial activity on this, various issues were identified regarding the attest and general experience requirements. As a result, the CBA paused on completing these activities and established this task force to help explore the experience requirement for licensure. The CERT voted to affirm that the actions taken by the CBA appear sufficient. However, they would like to emphasize the importance of client notification. No further action is necessary on the part of CERT. Please note that the CERT recommendation is a fully formed motion and would not require a second.
All right, do I hear a second on this item? Oh, already? Okay. All right, thank you. Ms. Reed, can you call for a vote?
Evangeline Ward,
Yes.
Yen Tu,
Ms. Reed, I apologize. I need to ask for public comment. Any public comment in Sacramento? Seeing none, now we can take a vote. Ms. Reed.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, your mic is off though.
my apologies. Joe Rosenbaum,
Yes.
Christian Lotta,
Yes.
Dan Jacobson,
Yes.
and Nancy Corrigan.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you, Ms. Reed. Ms. Colligan.
Continuing on then with agenda item 15A4, discussion and possible action on a recommendation to the California Board of Accountancy regarding how licensees who are accounting firm owners obtain experience to convert to a license with the authority to sign reports on attest engagements. Our licensing chief, Ms. Center, presented an agenda item on the ability for an accounting firm who are licensed with general accounting experience, or G licensees, to obtain the necessary attest experience to enable them to have authority to sign reports on attest engagements, such as an A licensee would be able to do. Currently, no path exists for an accounting firm owner to obtain qualifying attest experience. In order for an applicant's attest experience to qualify, the applicant's supervisor shall have reviewed and evaluated the qualifying work on a routine and recurring basis and shall have authority to oversight over the applicant. This model centers on an employer-employee relationship and does not account for firm owners. CERT discussed characteristics of a potential pathway to allow for accounting firm owners to obtain qualifying attest experience. Based on their discussion, CERT requests that the CBA adopt CERT's recommendation as follows. A pathway should be established for G licensees who are firm owners to obtain the necessary experience that would allow them to convert their license to one with attest authority And a pathway should be considered that includes a written signed agreement with a licensee outside of their firm to provide for subject matter experience and an oversight relationship. Further, the pathway should address characteristics that the approver of the experience should have, the following, including having a license with a test authority and being a highly qualified subject matter expert, such as being a firm partner or a peer reviewer, having independence in their judgment regarding the firm owner's satisfactory completion of the attest experience, and the firm or licensee providing the supervision should have successfully passed their most recent peer review. While the recommendation from CERT does not fully define a pathway, it does provide direction so that if the CBA adopts the CERT recommendation, then no further action is necessary on the part of the CERT. Please note that the CERT recommendation is a fully formed motion and would not require a second.
Thank you, Ms. Corrigan. Ms. Reed, can you call for the vote?
Let's have
Public
discussion,
comment.
please.
Yes. Please, any board member want to, Mr. Savoy?
Yeah, I'm having a little problem in that the owner of the firm is already a CPA under a G license.
Correct.
What is the likelihood and the probability that he's going to go back and do what's necessary to get an A license or get qualified when that's not what he intended to do to begin with? Therefore, it's almost like being a junior, then a senior, then a supervisor on audits in order to do that. So while I know you've punted that checklist course of action back, the practicality of that actually happening is more my concern than anything.
Well, I believe what I was understanding in the task force meetings that there have been requests for G license owners for a pathway to accomplish the A license. Now, what are the numbers currently and what will they be going forward? I do not know, but we currently have no, real model or framework for providing that to them. Mr. Franzella, can you add to that?
Yeah, I think you summed it up appropriately. It's becoming a far more common request, actually, and that's kind of what's brought it to this, brought it onto the CERT, and why it's being discussed is because we're seeing a number of individuals who've made that decision at one point to get the G license for whatever reasons. They've become successful in their firm. They want to expand that scope of service that their firm can offer, but they're unable to do it because of the limitations. So they're trying to find avenues in order to do it. And based on the discussion at CERT, in conjunction with staff's kind of viewpoint on it, was that we don't want to affect the supervisor definition. We need to kind of shift this to a different kind of model where it's more of an MOU between potentially a firm and another firm so that they can gain this experience if they want.
And again, I can't see them taking a shortcut to accomplish what those that have done it already had to do to get there. I understand the request is being made, but it's no different than a kid coming out of school that, that needs his 500 hours, et cetera, et cetera. So I appreciate that and look forward to hearing that course of action. But I can't endorse a shortcut to something that we've all done the way it should have been done.
Again.
Thank you. And responding to that, Mr. Savoy, certainly the task force discussed that very item and share that concern with you, and do not anticipate that this model or framework will be developed in any way to make it any easier. They would have to, the same hurdles would need to be jumped through. Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, we fully anticipate that it would still have to meet, let's just start with the 500 hours, that kind of threshold. They would have to complete in some form or fashion all the requisite requirements. So it's really to change the dynamic of the supervisor employer-employee relationship to kind of create more of a where they're kind of co-equals at some level, but that there's an attest license involved.
I don't see a lot of I'm trying to figure in my mind how is it a shortcut because it depends on what license they have. I know the relationship in the firm might kind of shift a little bit because somebody who's junior might have more license authorities, whatever.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's what it is. Those that sought to achieve an A license had certain requirements that had to be fulfilled to get to that level. Those that have G, I won't say it's a shortcut, but that's what they chose to go after, and now they want to go back as if they were starting and have to do it. So I didn't see a shortcut, but I just don't want an avenue that allows them to circumvent anything that those of us that have that license, blood, sweat, and tears to get there.
I appreciate the pointing
That
that
was
out.
discussed at length.
Yes, I recall. All right, any other comment from the board members? I'm going to the public for any comments. Seeing none, now Ms. Reed, can you take a vote?
Christian Lotta,
Yes.
Joe Rosenbaum,
Yes.
Katrina Salazar,
Yes.
Michael Savoy,
Yes.
Yen Tu,
Yes.
Evangeline Ward,
Yes.
Dan Jacobson,
Yes.
and Nancy Corrigan.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay,
Please
thank you.
continue, Ms. Corrigan.
Continuing on with agenda item 15A5, discussion and possible action on a recommendation to the California Board of Accountancy regarding reciprocity issued under Business and Professions Code Section 5087. Licensing Chief Center presented an agenda item on the reciprocity issued under Business and Professions Code Section 5087. This code section requires that an applicant who wishes to be licensed with the authority to sign reports on attest engagements meet the attest experience requirements found in Code Section 5095. Section 5095 within that code establishes the 500-hour minimum for attest experience for licensure with a test authority. Currently, only 2 other jurisdictions explicitly require a test experience to sign on a test engagements, while most states only require general accounting experience. As currently implemented, an applicant who holds a current, active, and unrestricted license in another state for 4 of the last 10 years and is authorized by that state to sign on a test engagements is eligible to be licensed in California with a test authority. Under the current implementation of these regulations, the possibility exists that a licensee seeking a license under reciprocity could have a license issued with the authority to sign on a test engagements without a test experience or having not engaged in a test functions recently. CERT requests that the CBA adopt CERT's recommendation to direct staff to prepare a report exploring how the current regulations may be amended to more thoroughly define reciprocity requirements for attest applicants. Please note that the CERT's recommendation is a fully formed motion and would not require a second.
Thank you, Ms. Corrigan. And any comments or questions from the board members? Anything from the public in Sacramento? Seeing none, Ms. Reed, can you call for the vote?
Dan Jacobson,
Yes.
Nancy Corrigan,
Yes.
Evangeline Ward,
Yes.
Yen Tu, Michael Savoy,
Yes.
Katrina Salazar,
Yes.
Joe Rosenbaum,
Yes.
and Christian Lotta.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you, Ms. Reed. Ms. Corrigan again.
Yes, one final item from the CERT is agenda item 15A6, discussion and possible action on a recommendation to the California Board of Accountancy regarding options for addressing possible consumer confusion between CPA licensees who maintain licenses with or without the authority to sign reports on attest engagements. Deputy Enforcement Chief O'Connor presented this item that addressed possible consumer confusion. between those licenses who maintain the license with or without authority, meaning between the A and the G type licensees. Prior to the current CERT discussions regarding this topic, in 2013, the task force to examine experience for CPA licensure, known as TEAL, T-E-E-L, reviewed this topic at its meeting in July 2013. As a result of those discussions, revisions were made for 3 areas of the CBA website that a consumer would access to review information regarding the authorized practice of a CPA, titled How to Select a CPA, California License Lookup feature, and the Consumer Assistance booklet. The revisions included clarifying information to ensure that consumers understand the difference between a test and general experience. Specifically, that an individual licensed with a test authority is simply that, authorized to sign reports on a test engagements, and that having an A in the experience completed column does not mean that the individual is necessarily qualified or actively practicing in that area. The CERT recommends that the CBA incorporate this topic into various outreach items as part of the CBA's communications and outreach plan. Items to consider include a dedicated page on the CBA website, a podcast, specific information regarding the types of services that a licensee with a test or general accounting experience can provide. CERT also believes it is important to include various stakeholders in our communication, such as faculty and students. Have no motion on this topic, but rather just recommendations for consideration. And Vice President Tu, I turn it back over to you.
Thank you for that very good report that you did, and that was a robust conversation earlier too on CERT. So on that note, we're going to item 15B for Legislative Committee, Mr. Rosenbaum.
Thank you. This is the report of yesterday's Legislative Committee meeting, which is 15B1. 15B2, overview of the California legislative process and the Legislative Committee's role. Yesterday, staff presented an overview of the California legislative process and the CBA Legislative Committee's role as it reviews, recommends, and promotes legislation related to consumer protection and the regulation of the practice of public accountancy. This presentation provided information regarding the processes and procedures staff follow to ensure effective monitoring of legislation and communication with DCA and the legislature, and thank you very much for that guidance. 15B3 is discussion and possible action on legislative proposals for inclusion in the 2023 Senate Committee on Business Professions and Economic Development Committee bill. Staff reported that the Senate Business Professions and Economic Development Committee intends to introduce a technical, non-substantive committee bill during the 2023 legislative year to revise provisions of the Business and Professions Code pertaining to the Department of Consumer Affairs. Staff reported that they have identified possible non-substantive statutory changes for inclusion within this bill, including updates of references of he, she to and his, her to gender-neutral pronouns, update references from, quote, internet website to, quote, website, unquote, for consistency, update the peer review rating term of substandard to fail to be consistent with the AICPA's standards for performing and reporting of peer reviews, delete statutory reference to an advisory continuing education committee that is no longer in existence, delete outdated delete outdated transitional language that was used when implementing the new CPA licensure requirements back in 2023, and to delete outdated language associated with old notice and fee practice privilege program. The LC discussed and recommends that the CBA approve the statutory proposals included as attachments 1 to 27 of the agenda item and direct staff to seek their inclusion in the 2023 Senate Business Professions and Economic Development Committee bill. This is a fully formed motion and does not require a second. I'll turn it back over to Vice President Tu for discussion and vote.
Thank you very much. Any discussion or comment from the board? Oh, Mr. Jacobson, I see your hands up. You're next.
Thank you. The 1 through 14 of the changes are from are to gender neutral uh, words, pronouns, but they're to plural pronouns. So it goes from he or she to them. Them means many people. And I understand and appreciate and feel and think that all genders should be considered when these things happen, and including non-binary genders when we're addressing them, or when we're addressing everyone, and but I think also it's important to honor the individual who's actually going to be doing something, who's actually saying something, who's actually doing something. So he or she is one. Them is, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't know how many. And it's not necessarily one person. So while I appreciate the effort here, and I'm fully supportive of it, of the idea that we have gender neutral pronouns, maybe I would suggest that the legislature come out with a gender neutral pronoun that means one person, but that hasn't happened here. So I'm against this because of 1 through 14. I'm for the rest of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jacobson, for your comment. Ms. Ward.
I just want to share with Mr. Jacobson, if he's available, he can contact me. I teach community health. This is way more than an English type of situation you're announcing or concerned about. It's not English related at all. This is a population that wants their name, not he, she, but they or them. They're requesting this from us. The board, we need to make this happen. It's just that simple. I think it's nothing to really discuss about it. But I do have classes or courses or links I can share with Mr. Jacobson. That way I can give you a better understanding of what the board or what the state is asking us to do.
Have a motion in front of us. If there's no other questions, I would like to open up to the public for any comments. Seeing none, Ms. Reed, can you call for the vote?
Joe Rosenbaum,
Yes.
Katrina Salazar,
Yes.
Michael Savoy,
Yes.
Yen Tu,
Yes.
Evangeline Ward,
Yes.
Nancy Corrigan,
Yes.
Dan Jacobson,
No.
Christian Lotta,
Yes.
and the motion carries.
Thank you, Ms. Reed. All right, moving on to the agenda item 14C, Committee on Professional Conduct. Ms. Latta.
Thank you, Vice President Tu. Okay, so we met for the Committee on Professional Conduct January 26th, yesterday. We approved the minutes of the previous meeting. Our primary agenda item is the 15C2, discussion and possible action on the exposure draft regarding proposed revisions to the standards for continuing professional education programs and fields of study document. Staff provided an overview of the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants. I will refer to that as AICPA going forward, and National Association of State Boards of Accountancy, or NASBA, jointly issued exposure draft on the proposed revisions to the standards
for continuing professional education programs, and the NASBA Fields of Study document. The NASBA Fields of Study document is issued by NASBA and includes 20 subject matter areas that represent skills and knowledge needed to perform public accounting. California maintains statutory and regulatory provisions that draw guidance from the standards and Fields of Study document, but it retains its own framework for regulating the continuing education requirement. The NASBA standards are reviewed and evaluated every 2 years from the effective date, with their last revision on December 31st, 2019. One significant change in the new NASBA standards being proposed is a revision that would include real-time interaction of participants with each other, as well as with an instructor in group live programs. Staff indicated that the exposure draft does not present any immediate requirement for CBA action as a result of changes to the standards or the Fields of Study document. The Department of Consumer Affairs is currently developing regulations to prescribe components for mandatory continuing education by any board within the department. These regulations are anticipated to be adopted in 2024, and it is possible that the CBA may be asked to consider regulatory changes at that time. Currently, the CPC recommends that the CBA approve and submit the letter of support to the AICPA and NASBA regarding the exposure draft. This is a fully formed motion and does not require a second. I will turn it back to Vice President Tu for discussion and a vote.
Thank you, Ms. Lala. Does anybody have any comments or questions from the board? Seeing none. Any from the public? Seeing none. Ms. Reed, can you take a vote?
Christian Lada,
Yes.
Joe Rosenbaum,
Yes.
Katrina Salazar,
Yes.
Michael Savoy,
Yes.
Yen Tu,
Yes.
Evangeline Ward,
Yes.
Dan Jacobson,
Yes.
and Nancy Corrigan.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you, Ms. Reed. We're on the home stretch, people. So now we're going to item 14D. I'm going to be reporting out on these items, 14D 2. Revision schedule for regulatory changes associated with the disciplinary guidelines and model order California Code of Regulation, Title 16, Division 1, Section 98. Deputy Enforcement Chief O'Connor presented this item. This item provides members with the opportunity to review and revision schedule for the rulemaking process regarding changes to the CBA disciplinary guidelines and model order. It is anticipated that CBA will initiate the rulemaking package to update the guideline at the November 2023 meeting. Lots of time warning for that. Member did not have any additional edit or feedback to the proposed revision schedule for this rulemaking package. This is an informational item and no action needs to be taken. Moving on to item 13D3. Staff presented this item to provide the member with proposed language to incorporate in the California Board of Accountancy disciplinary guideline and model order regarding the National Association of State Board of Accountancy, NASBA. The Center for the Public Trust, Ethic Leadership Training. This was an information item, and EPA member did not have edit to the proposed draft language. This concludes my report for the January 27, 2023 EPIC meeting. All right, the last item on the agenda is the closing business agenda for future California Board of Accountancy meetings. Are there any agenda items from members? If so, please raise your hand. Michael Savoy.
Thank you. I'd like to, at a future meeting, hopefully the very near future, bring back items 6, F, and G regarding the peer review oversight process. I feel I was remiss in not going a little bit further in my explaining the background that led to that agenda item. thought it was wise at the time due to two individuals that were in the room and didn't want to make it combative and defensive. But I believe the board deserves an explanation that I'd be happy to share, as well as Ms. Corrigan, with events that took place. And I'd like to bring the board attention fully to what transpired that led to those agenda items.
Of course, we're making a note of that. And I want to give the public an opportunity for a future agenda item for the board. Seeing none, our meeting is adjourned, and thank you for the past president. You guys make it look so easy, and I appreciate all your patience with my first time chairing this board.
Excellent work, too. Thank you very much, everyone. It's nice to see you. I hope to be in Sacramento in March.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye.